The sailor was still alive when they pulled him out of the tree. His body had been folded over a branch 30 feet above the ground, arms hanging loose, throat open from ear to ear. Blood should have covered the snow beneath him. There was none. Meduas looked up just as the sailor's eyes opened. "Don't let me come down," the man whispered. Then something inside of his chest began striking his ribs. Once, twice, hard enough to crack bone. The hunters raised their weapons. The sailor screamed. His mouth split wider than a human mouth could open, and a pale arm reached out from inside of him. Meduas fired. The body burst apart. The thing wearing it hit the ground running. BL moved first. He drove his spear downward, but the creature twisted beneath the point and sprang between the trees on 4 white limbs. It was too narrow, too fast. Pieces of the sailor still hung from it. A hand, part of a jaw, one blue eye swinging from a strip of skin. Lintuk fired an arrow. The shaft entered its back. The creature screamed in the sailor's voice, then in a woman's, then in the voice of Lintuk's dead mother. "My son." Lintuk froze, but only for a breath. Meduas struck him across the shoulder. "It's not her." The creature disappeared over the ridge. The 5 hunters followed. They moved without calling to one another. BL tracked. Meduas read the land ahead. Mali watched the branches and the snowbanks for anything pretending to be still. Sebel guarded the rear. Lintuk ran with the shame of his hesitation burning inside of him. The trail should have been easy. Black fluid sprayed across the snow. The creature had one of Lintuk's arrows in its back. After 50 paces, the blood stopped. The prints changed. 4 limbs became 2 feet. Then bare feet became boots. Then the trail divided into 6 identical paths. BL stopped. Each set of tracks carried the same depth, the same stride, the same torn heel on the left boot. "It learned the sailor's walk," Lintuk said. "No," BL answered. "It looked toward the eastern trail. It learned what we would follow." Meduas studied the forest. No birds, no squirrel tracks. Nothing crossed the 6 paths. Animals had given them all room. Mali crouched beside a spruce tree. A small flap of skin caught on the bark. She lifted it with the point of her knife. It was an eyelid still trying to blink. "It's shedding him," she said. Meduas looked east, beyond the trees. Smoke rose against the winter sky. A settlement. The creature had chosen its direction before they even found the sailor. "It wants walls," Meduas said. BL nodded. "And people who do not know what it is." They followed the eastern trail. The other 5 ended in traps. One led to a hollow log filled with severed fingers. One circled back toward the tree. Another crossed a frozen brook and stopped in the center where something beneath the ice knocked gently against their feet. The true trail grew harder to see as they neared the settlement. Not because the creature was weakening, because it had stopped running. It was walking now, practicing. At the edge of the forest, they found the sailor's boots placed neatly beside one another. Inside them were both of his feet. Beyond that, no trail entered the open ground. BL stood at the snow. It did not cross here. Meduas looked toward the settlement. A dozen houses, A church, store sheds near a tidal river, half a palisade facing the forest, nothing guarding the water. Smoke drifted from every chimney. A bell rang once, then stopped. Molly turned toward the line of spruce north of the village. Someone is watching us. A musket flashed between the trees. The shot struck Sebel beneath the ribs. He fell hard. Lintuk fired toward the smoke. Matus knocked the bow aside. Human. 3 soldiers stepped from the palisade with the muskets raised. More settlers appeared behind them, men with axes, women pulling children into houses. The hunters lowered their weapons but did not drop them. The gray-bearded officer came through the unfinished gate. You will remain where you are. Matuas glanced at Sebel. Blood spread beneath him. Mali pressed both hands over the wound. The ball had passed through. He was alive for now. We followed something into your village, Maduas said. The officer looked at the blood on their clothing. You followed a sailor. We found what remained of him. The man in black stepped beside the officer. His collar was white. His face was not. He looked at the hunters as though they were a disease. Captain Hallcrow, he said, do not let them closer. Hallcrow kept his pistol trained on Matuas. What happened to the sailor? Matuas pointed toward the houses. Part of him is already inside. Murmurs moved through the settlers. The minister raised his voice. They come armed, covered in blood, carrying stories of demons. Maduas looked at him. We carry blood because we tried to kill it. The minister's mouth tightened. You expect Christian people to believe creatures walk inside men? No. Maduas looked past him. I expect you to believe what you see. A child screamed. The sound came from the nearest house. A woman shouted a name. Then a man stumbled into the road, barefoot, coat open, skin gray with cold. The settlers erupted. Daniel. A woman ran toward him. Maduas saw the walk, left foot dragging, right shoulder hanging lower. The sailor's walk. Stop her. Captain Hallcrow turned. What? Stop her now. The woman reached the man. He opened his arms. She threw herself against him. For one moment he held her gently. Then his fingers entered her back. Not through cloth, through bone. Her scream became a wet, choking sound. The man lifted her from the ground. His face changed. The skin loosened. The jaw widened. The sailor's blue eye opened beneath Daniel's cheek. Maduas fired. The ball entered its neck. The creature dropped the woman and ran toward the church. The settlers opened fire. Shots tore through doors, walls, and one another. The creature crossed the road untouched. Biel threw his spear. It entered the thing's leg and pinned it briefly to a fence. The creature bent backwards, reached down and tore its own leg free. Something pale spilled out from inside the torn limb and crawled toward a cellar. Mali saw it. Under the houses, the creature reached the church steps. The doors opened from within. No one stood there. It slipped inside. The doors closed. Silence fell over the settlement. The dead woman lay by the road. Sebel bled into the snow. The settlers stared at the church. then the hunters. The minister whispered a prayer. Meduas walked toward the village. Captain Hallcrow didn't stop him this time. "You said part of the sailor was already inside," the captain said. Meduas looked at the cellar doors beneath the houses, at the chimney smoke, at every frightened face learning the names of the people around it. "No," he said. "I said part of him." From beneath the road came 3 slow knocks, then another 3, then answering knocks from beneath every house and bellwether. No one moved. The knocking traveled beneath bellwether in a slow circle. 3 beneath the cooper's house, 3 beneath the barracks, 3 beneath the church, then silence. Captain Hallcrow looked toward the unfinished palisade. "How many?" Meduas watched the cellar doors. "At least 2. The minister turned on him. "You said 1. "I said we followed 1. Molly cut open Sibel's coat. The musket ball had passed beneath the ribs, but blood kept welling between her fingers. She looked toward the nearest house. "I need a cloth. Boiled water." No one moved to help her. The settlers still stared at the hunters as if the thing in the church had somehow come from them. A broad woman pushed through the crowd. Her hair was tied beneath a gray cap. "Bring him inside." The minister caught her arm. "Agnes. He is bleeding. They may have brought this upon us." Agnes pulled free. "So did your sermon stop Daniel from opening his wife?" The minister had no answer. Agnes helped Molly carry Sibel into the tavern. Meduas remained on the road. The woman the creature had killed lay by where it had dropped her. Her name had been Ruth Pike. Her husband stood several paces away, unable to approach. The wound in her back was too wide for any hand. Still, something moved beneath her dress. Biel saw it. "Burn her." Ruth's husband looked at him. "She's not yet cold." "That's why." Several settlers raised their weapons again. Captain Hallcrow stepped in between them. "You'll explain." Meduas nodded toward the body. The thing inside the sailor left pieces of itself behind. One entered the cellar. Another may be inside of her. Ruth's husband knelt beside of his wife. "No." The dead woman's fingers closed around his wrist. He cried out. Her eyes opened. Not both. Only one. The other rolled beneath the skin of her forehead. Biel struck before anybody else understood. His spear entered her chest and pinned her to the road. The body folded upward around the shaft. Her mouth opened and Daniel's voice came out. "Help me." Ruth's husband froze. The dead woman smiled at him. Then a white shape pushed through her throat. Meduas fired into it. Black fluid sprayed across the snow. Molly came from the tavern carrying a burning brand. She set Ruth Pike on fire. Her husband screamed at them to stop. Captain Hallcrow held him back. The thing inside Ruth burned first. It twisted beneath her skin, forcing the body to crawl several feet while the legs remained dead. Then the flames reached her face. The movement ended. No one questioned Meduas after that. Not allowed, anyway. They brought every resident into the open road and counted them. 41 living, 2 dead, 3 missing. Daniel Wren, a fisherman named Josiah Bell, and the village midwife, Elsbeth Crow. Captain Hall Crow placed soldiers at both ends of the road. Meduas shook his head. Not there. That's where anyone leaving must pass. They will not leave on the road. He pointed to the foundations. They are beneath you. The captain looked at the packed earth as if it become water. BL walked the settlement once before full darkness. He checked every cellar entrance, woodpile, well, and crawl space. Lintook followed him. Neither spoke until they reached the church. The front doors remained closed. Blood marked the lower boards. Not splashed. Drawn. 3 lines. Lintook crouched. Our warning. No, BL said. He touched the mark. The blood was still warm. They copied it. The lines were almost correct. Almost. But the lower stripe bent the wrong way. The creatures had seen the sign before. They knew it frightened the hunters. Now they were using it to make the old knowledge uncertain. From inside the church came the sound of someone breathing. Slowly. Deeply. Lintook lifted the bow. A child's voice whispered from the other side. BL. The tracker's expression changed. Only slightly. The voice whispered again. You left me in the river. Lintook looked at him. BL stopped away from the door. My brother drowned when I was 12. The voices scratched softly against the wood. You held my hand until I stopped. BL's jaw tightened. You see, Lintook said. It knows. No. BL looked at the blood mark. It listens. He raised his voice. My brother had no tongue. The breathing stopped. Something slammed into the door from inside. The entire frame shook. Lintook almost smiled. They made it reveal its ignorance. Then another voice spoke. This one belonged to Metuas. Open the door. Both hunters turned. Metuas stood at the far end of the road. Then the thing inside the church laughed. By sunset, they had moved all the villagers into the meeting hall. 1 room, no cellar, 2 doors, with very small windows. Molly examined each person before allowing them inside. She checked wounds, gums, eyes, and breath. Reverend Vale objected when she cut the palm of every person who had disappeared from sight during the attack. You mutilate frightened people. Molly looked at the blood on her knife. A frightened person bleeds. An old settler named Ezra Webb did not. The blade entered his palm. Nothing came out. Ezra looked down at the cut, then at Molly. His face remained calm. Too calm. She drove the knife upward beneath his chin. The old man caught her wrist. His hand tightened. Bones cracked. Molly gasped. Metuas struck him across the temple with the butt of his musket. Ezra's head twisted completely around. His body remained facing forward. Somebody screamed. The thing wearing Ezra opened its mouth. A second mouth inside opened up. Then a third. BL and Lintook pinned it against the wall with spears. Captain Hallcrow fired into its chest. The creature laughed in its own voice. Metuas poured lamp oil all over it. The settlers backed away. Reverend Vale stood frozen near the door. Ezra's face turned toward him. Josiah. The minister went pale. The voice changed. A woman now, soft and familiar. Why did you bury me alone? Vale dropped the Bible in his hand. Medua's lit the oil. The creature burned. Its skin split, revealing a narrow white body beneath. It struck the wall hard enough to crack the boards. When the flames finally consumed it, the old meeting hall had smelt like wet earth and old blood. Vale stared into the fire. My wife died last spring. Medua said nothing. She's buried beneath the church. Then don't listen when she calls. Vale's face hardened. You speak as though grief is stupidity. No. Medua's looked down toward the church. I speak as though it's a door. The minister hated him for being right. That made him dangerous. Night settled over Bellwether. The knocking began again. Not beneath every house, only beneath the meeting hall. 3 slow knocks, a pause, then 3 more. Captain Hallcrow ordered the soldiers to hold the doors. BL pressed his ear to the floor. The sound was not directly below them. It was moving, circling, searching for weakness. Mali finished binding Sebel's wounds. He cannot fight. Sebel opened his eyes. I can stand. That's not the same, she said. He tried anyway. The effort reopened the wound. Medua has pushed him back down. You guard the children. Sebel looked toward the frightened families gathered along the walls. He nodded. It was not lesser work. Everyone in the room understood that by the way Medua had said it. The woman near the window began humming. Quietly. One of the Acadian settlers. Her name was Marguerite Leblanc. She sat with her young son against her chest. The tune was soft and repetitive. Her son looked up. Mama? She kept humming. Molly crossed the room. Stop. Marguerite did not. Her son touched her face. The skin beneath the fingers moved, not the muscles, but something underneath. Molly grabbed the boy and pulled him away. Marguerite's head snapped toward her. The humming continued from her closed mouth. Captain Hallcrow raised his pistol. Marguerite stood. Her dress hung strangely. It was too loose around the ribs. Then the missing midwife crawled out from beneath it. Not from behind her, from inside. Elsbeth Crow unfolded from Marguerite's body joint by joint, slick with black fluid. Marguerite remained standing for 1 second longer, empty, then collapsed. The room erupted. Elsbeth moved across the ceiling. Her fingers pierced the beams. Soldiers fired upwards. Smoke filled the hall. She dropped into the crowd and tore a man's throat open. BL struck her shoulder. Lintuck drove an arrow through her mouth. She bit the arrow in half. Molly shoved the boy behind Sebel. Medua's fired at the lamp above the door. Oil and flame fell across Elsbeth's back. She screamed. Not in her own voice, in the voice of everyone buried behind the church. The walls answered. Knocking exploded beneath the floor. All the boards lifted. White fingers pushed through the gaps. They're coming up, BL shouted. The creatures had not been circling the hall. They had been waiting for panic. Medua's looked toward the church through the smoke. Its windows were glowing, not with fire, but with movement. Shadows passed beneath the glass, dozens of them. Captain Hallcrow stared. How many bodies are buried there? Vale did not answer. Hallcrow seized him. How many? The minister's lips trembled. 23. Meduas understood. The creatures had not chosen the church because they feared it. They had chosen it because Bellwether had placed all of its dead inside of it. Outside, the bell began to ring. The sound rolled over the settlement. 1 strike. 2 strikes. 3. Every grave behind the church opened at once, and the dead began walking toward the meeting hall. The first dead man reached the meeting hall before the bell stopped ringing. He wore a burial shirt and carried grave soil in his open mouth. Captain Hallcrow fired through his chest. The dead man staggered, looking down at the hole, then kept walking. Biel struck him behind the knee. The leg folded. Lintuck drove an arrow through the skull. Only then did the body stop. More shapes moved beyond him. Men, women, children, some newly buried, others blackened by years beneath the earth. They came from behind the church in a silent line, heads angled toward the meeting hall. Every grave had opened. Meduas looked at the floorboards rising beneath his feet. The hall couldn't hold any more. They want us trapped between the dead and what's below. Captain Hallcrow reloaded. Then where do we go? The river. Reverend Vale stared at the walking bodies. My wife is among them. Meduas grabbed the minister's coat. Then decide now whether she is your wife. Vale looked through the smoke. The woman in a faded blue dress stood near the churchyard wall. She had been beautiful once. Perhaps she was still to him. Her neck was bent from the grave, and she smiled. Josiah. Vale's face broke. She held one hand out. The fingers were dark with earth. Come home. Meduas released him. The minister lifted the axe beside the door. My wife hated that dress. Then the thing wearing her stopped smiling. Vale understood. It had her voice. It had her memories, but not her. He stepped into the road. His wife ran toward him. Vale waited until she was close, then swung. The axe split her face. Something white uncoiled from inside of her and wrapped around his arm. He screamed. Captain Hallcrow fired. The white thing burst apart, but Vale went down with it. Meduas dragged him clear. Can you stand? Vale looked at what remained of his wife. Yes. Then he said, burn the church. The minister rose. The doors of the meeting hall broke inward. White fingers were reaching through the floor. Biel overturned a table and drove it across the opening. Move. Families poured into the road. The hunters formed around them. Sabel remained near the children, one hand pressed over his wound, and the other hand holding a musket. He could barely walk. Still, none of the dead came close to him. Every time one did, he fired. The road became smoke and fire. Creatures used familiar faces first. A dead father calling to his son. A drowned girl reaching for her mother. A soldier killed years earlier, still wearing the red coat. And when those failed, they stopped pretending. Bodies opened, ribs spread, pale limbs unfolded from inside them. The dead climbed walls and roofs. One ran across the side of a house without touching the ground. Another squeezed through a window no wider than a man's head. The settlers fired wildly. Medua struck one musket aside before it killed Biel. Do not shoot at movement. What else do we shoot at? The soldier yelled. What we give you. Biel whistled once. The hunter shifted. Lintook fired from the roof. Mali marked targets with burning cloth. The soldiers began following their shots, one target at a time. A creature dropped, then another. Then the difference was immediate. The settlers stopped fighting like frightened people. They began fighting inside the hunters' plan. Meduas pointed toward the landing. Keep the families between the carts. Do not let anyone leave the line. Captain Hallcrow repeated the order. The villagers moved downhill. Behind them, Reverend Vale reached the church. The dead gathered around him. He smashed a lantern against the door. The flames spread across the boards. The bell continued ringing above him. Mrs. Vale's voice called to him from inside. Josiah. Vale looked up at the tower. You are not my wife. The bell stopped. Every dead face in the churchyard turned toward him. Vale smiled once. Then he threw the second lantern through the window. The church ignited. The creature screamed, but not from the holiness, from the fire. The sound rolled across Bellwether. The dead abandoned the meeting hall and rushed toward the burning church. Medua saw the opening. Now. The survivors ran for the river. The tide had been withdrawn further than the settlers have ever seen. Black mud stretched beneath the moon. Channels of fast water cut across it. The hunters had crossed those flats for generations. They knew which dark patches would swallow a leg, which stone remains beneath the surface. Where the tide returned first. The creatures knew none of it. That was the advantage. They reached the landing. Captain Hallcrow stared across the exposed ground. We can't take families over that. You cannot, Metua said, but we can. Biel and Lintook moved toward the mud first, placing torches along a narrow path. Mali grabbed the children. Sebel came behind them. Each step opened his wound further. Hellcrow offered his shoulder. Sebel shook his head. Watch behind. The captain did. The church roof collapsed. Burning shapes climbed from it. Some carried pieces of the dead. Others no longer bothered wearing bodies. They were white and narrow with too many limbs and heads that changed shape whenever they moved. The physician came among them. His human skin had split from throat to waist. Faces moved beneath it. Daniel Wren, Elsbeth Crow, Ezra Webb, people from Bellwater, people from elsewhere, people dead before the settlement existed. The physician stepped onto the mud. You still use the river? Metuas looked between him and the survivors. You still fear it? The creature smiled. We crossed an ocean and came back hiding inside dead men. The smile vanished. Behind Metuas, the last child reached the stone path. The creatures began spreading across the flats. Biel lifted one hand. The hunters waited. Hallcrow whispered, Why are we not firing? Because they are choosing their footing. The dead moved faster, closer. Then the first one sank to the waist. The mud closed around it. Another stepped inside and found deeper ground. Another fell into a channel and screamed as a current turned black around it. Biel dropped his hand. The muskets fired. The first line of creatures collapsed. Lintook's arrows followed, each shaft carrying a burning cloth. The fire moved across the mud. The creatures tried to retreat, but the tide had begun returning behind them. Water entered the channels with sudden force. The flats changed shape. Safe ground disappeared. The hunters moved with it. The creatures did not. Captain Hallcrow saw one running toward Meduez. He fired. The ball shattered its knee. Meduez drove a burning spear through its mouth. For the first time, the captain and the hunter looked at one another without suspicion. The physician struck. He crossed the mud faster than anything would have been able to move. One moment he stood near the shore. The next his hand was through Hallcrow's chest. The captain looked down. The physician lifted him off the ground. Meduez drove a knife through the creature's wrist. BL hooked its neck with a spear. Together they tore Hallcrow free. The captain fell into the mud, gasping. The physician turned toward Meduez. Its face changed. An old Mi'kmaq man looked back at him. Meduez knew the face from childhood. It was his grandfather, the man who had taught him the rules, the man who had died before Meduez became old enough to lead. Meduez, it said. His hand loosened around the knife. The face smiled. You left me beneath the stones. Meduez stared. His grandfather had not died beneath the stones. He died beside a fire with his family around him. The creature had listened, but it had not listened long enough. Meduez stepped closer. My grandfather had no fear of dying. The face flickered. Meduez drove the knife into its throat. The creature roared. The false face split open, white limbs erupted from its back and caught Meduez around the waist. Lintuk ran toward them. The physician saw them and stopped. Again, recognition. You wear his face. Lintuk fired at point-blank range. The arrow entered the creature's black eye. It screamed and seized him. The braided line around Lintuk's waist snapped tight. BL had tied it before the battle. The creature dragged Lintuk toward deeper mud. BL and Molly pulled from the stone path. Meduez wrapped the loose end around his forearm. The returning tide struck. Water surged between them. The physician's stolen skin peeled away in strips. The surgeon, a sailor, the old man, a French woman, a child. Faces flashed across its body and vanished. The creature dug its limbs into the mud. Meduez pulled harder. So did BL. So did Mali. Captain Hallcrow, bleeding into his coat, seized the line with one hand. Then Reverend Vale came up from the shore and took hold as well. Settlers joined them, one after another. The line tightened. The creature looked back at them. Mi'kmaq, English, Acadian, all pulling in the same direction. Not as equals in knowledge, not as equals in command, but united beneath the hunter's plan. The physician began laughing. You believe this changes what they are? Meduez pulled until a line cut through his palms. No. He looked at the settlers behind him. It changes what they do next. The tide surged again. The creature lost its footing. Lintuk disappeared beneath the water with it. Molly screamed his name. The line went slack. For several seconds there was nothing. Then Lintuk surfaced beyond the channel. BL reached him first. The physician rose behind them. Nothing human remained. The body was tall and white and almost transparent. Inside there were hundreds of mouths, all speaking at once. Every voice it had taken, every life it had carried. The first light of dawn reached the river. The creature looked east. Fear passed through every face inside of it. It tried to reach the shore. The current held it. Sunlight spread across the flats. The mouth inside the creature opened, not screaming, begging. The light passed through it. Its body collapsed into black water. What remained washed toward the ocean. Around the flats, the others began failing. Dead bodies dropped. White shapes curled inside them. The hunters burned each one. They didn't stop until the sun was fully above the trees. Bellwether had lost more than half of its people. The church was gone. The meeting hall burned. The road was black with ash. Reverend Vale buried his wife for the second time. He didn't pray over the grave. He simply placed the earth back where it belonged. Captain Hallcrow survived. Barely. Molly closed the wound in his chest and told him he would never lift his arm properly again. He thanked her. She did not answer. Sabel died before noon. He had guarded every child in Bellwether until the last creature left the village. Matuas and PL carried him out beyond the palisade. The settlers offered a wagon. The hunters refused. They would not let strange wheels carry him over familiar ground. When they returned, Hallcrow stood waiting near the river. He held the physician's leather case. Inside were ordinary tools, knives, threads, bottles, a small saw. Beneath the lining, Biel found waxed paper, names on it, ports, rivers, settlements, some English, some French, some copied badly from Mi'kmaq words. Several had been crossed out. Bellwether was not among them. Near the bottom, one name had been circled twice. Jibuktuk. Hallcrow looked at Meduse. What does it mean? It means the village was not the destination. The captain stared toward the eastern water. How many more came across? Meduse folded the page. We have never known. Hallcrow removed his hat. When you arrived, I thought you were the danger. You were meant to, Meduse said. The captain looked at the ruins. Will they come back? Meduse shouldered his musket. They already did. The hunters turned toward the forest. Lintook walked with them, pale and limping. Mali carried Sabel's weapons. Biel carried the map. And at the tree line, Hallcrow called after them. Will we see you again? Meduse stopped. He didn't turn. I hope not. Then they disappeared beneath the spruce. The people of Bellwether watched until the forest swallowed them. Only then did they understand what happened. The Mi'kmaq had not come to destroy their village. They had not come to challenge their faith. They had not brought the evil from the forest. They had followed it here. They had known its tricks, and they had understood the land. They had built the plan. And while Bellwether's people argued over who was civilized, the hunters had been the only thing standing between them and the dead. By the time the settlement understood it had been saved, the hunters were already moving east, toward Jibuktuk, toward the next name on the page, and somewhere beneath the water ahead of them, something old had already begun walking toward shore. Sleep tight, or don't. From dusk till dawn. If you made it this far, I appreciate you listening. Give us a like and subscribe. Share it if you feel like it. You don't have to, though. but I appreciate you listening. Thank you.